Hello and welcome to We the People. Tonight we'd like to talk about something that is all-encompassing in our lives, that is ubiquitous, that is a wonder substance that can never be destroyed. I'm talking about the scourge of plastics. Can we live without plastic? Now, plastic has revolutionized convenience, it's revolutionized life as we know it. It plays a critical role in all technological advancements that we've seen in this century, whether it's replacement heart valves, whether it's computers. Yet at the same time, they are now threatening our animal life, our marine life, and human life. Plastics are durable, they're lightweight, they're waterproof, they're easy to produce, they're cheap, and they're non-biodegradable. And there's mountains of it that's choking our drains and our streets. Now, according to the World Economic Forum, by 2050, our oceans will have more plastics than it will have fish. Now, India this week committed to banning all single-use plastics by 2022. Is this realistic, or are these just store promises that cannot be implemented? On the show tonight, we have Bittu Sehgal, environmental activist and writer. He's also the founding editor of Sanctuary Asia. We have Siddharth Singh, who is the chairman of the Jute Foundation, a former IAS officer also. Vineet Goenka, member of the BJP. Tikinder Panwar, former deputy mayor of Shimla. He's a member of the CPIM. Mr. Lal Singh, who is the LK Singh, who is the Vice President North of the All India Plastic Manufacturing Association. Sean Van Wyk, he is the Senior Marketing Director of Adidas India. And Rukmini Shekhar, writer, filmmaker, one of the litigants who filed a case in the Supreme Court asking for a complete ban on plastic bags. And Sonia Henham, Deputy Program Manager of Waste Management for the Centre for Science and Environment. Bittu Sehgal, I want to start with you first. Bittu, how serious really is this problem? This week, anybody who has a social media account or who is even remotely interested in world news would be aware, would have seen those images of that poor whale struggling for its life. It died a painful, protracted death with some 8 kgs of plastic discovered in its stomach. Is this an alarm bell?
Yeah, it's an alarm bell. I mean, it's the equivalent of the canary in a coal mine. What's happening to the whales today is already happening to human beings. And yes, what you see before you, you know, the litter that you see on the beaches or the plastic that you pull out of whales, that's just one part of the whole story. It's the impact of plastics that nobody can see, nobody can smell, that really is the problem. I mean, when you take something, one single plastic called PVC, polyvinyl chloride, you burn that and you put out dioxins and furans, and that interferes with your endocrine system, and that causes all manner of miseries, including cancers, genetic defects, endocrine disruption. That means your immune system gets affected. These are all the things that are not told to us, you know. And frankly, I should know more about plastics than most people, because I started my life at the age of 17 selling large plastic buckets for the chemical industry. I was just out of school. I know the inside story, and it's very scary.
But Bittu, if I can play devil's advocate, why has India been picked to play host this year to this international movement to ban single-use plastics? Right? We're not even the worst offenders. According to some reports, Indians on an average use 1/10 of the amount of plastic than an average American does.
It's not a question of how much you use. You know, if you go to the European Union, or let's say there's something called the Basel Convention that took place, which said you cannot export toxic material to a country that doesn't have the capacity to deal with it. Now, in those days, if you walked across any one of the streets in Hamburg or Bonn or something like this in Germany, you'd have all these different colored bins. You'd put plastic here, you'd put glass here, you'd put this. Now, all the other stuff would handle, but the PVC, polyvinyl chloride, was exported to India, where we were turning it into hardcore toxic material. And that's one of the contributive factors for why the cancer rates in India have gone up. 40 years ago, they were less. It's these things, it's these little drops in the toxic ocean that affect not just the fish. And quite frankly, I don't understand why we're not skipping all this, because we know it. It's there in the science. It's there for us to see. I mean, They first sent the PVC to us, and when we couldn't handle it, they sent incinerators to us. While incinerators were banned in Europe. Why? We should be an intelligent nation. We should ask why.
Okay, we should ask why. Vineet, come in over here, you know, because the UN has feted India actually, and the UN Environment Chief actually says that we have shown global leadership because Prime Minister Modi has promised to make us single-use plastic free by 2022. Is this just the government's, you know, blowing hot air? Is this a promise that they really cannot make?
I think the Prime Minister Modi is very serious about this. And in today's environment, we don't have to wait to become one of the largest user of plastics. Rather, we should start right now and start teaching our kids and ourselves not to use that. And I think that statement which he made on the Twitter that day, in the urge of prosperity, you know, we should not degrade our environments and give something to the next generation. He's serious about that. And there are 18 states, I'm very proud, 18 states have already banned plastic, single-use plastics.
But we still have access to plastics. Why
The
does
first
the PM
step-
say
I
we're
think
going
the
to
first
ban it
step
across
in,
the country? Like you
governance.
said, 18 states have completely banned. I think it's 17. 25 states have some sort of a partial ban, but we can all admit that this is probably the worst enforced ban in the country because you can get plastics anywhere you want anytime.
Why I'm very optimistic, I'll tell you.
So why do you believe the PM when he says that we're going to be successful
before
in
the show, I was
2022?
sitting in the green room with a couple of the guests and somebody said that it is the political will which was lacking. And I think the first step of a political will is where you start making laws about it. So you say that, yes, I'm conscious, we are aware of this, we have been sensitized and we would like to make a law.
But we have
the
a
second
law,
one
we
is,
have
the
bans.
now is made. And the second one is to implement that. And see, there are not only plastic ban laws, but if you see the regime, current regime is promoting alternate to plastic. So for example, removing bamboo from the tree plantation. So now it has been used, it will be used for other purposes. Promoting jute as far as there. So these kind of things will help plastic. So earlier we were talking about just banning plastic, but then what's the alternate? So this time I think probably the regime has shown that they are serious by removing bamboo from the tree act, the forest act. So now these kind of supplementary steps which are there. The second step is where the Prime Minister from the podium says that I am serious about it. I think that makes all the citizens conscious about this. So till now it was only the activists who were talking about this. These were only citizens who were aware citizens who were talking about it. Now this is the first time Prime Minister has talked about this and so seriously. So I think the nation is going in the right direction.
But we have, most states haven't even implemented that plastic waste management rules of 2011. And most states now are BJP rule states.
Yeah, one of the state, I'll tell you one of the case in Maharashtra, when the state banned it, somebody went against that to High Court and High Court said, stay. So now there are this kind of things which we'll have to understand. Maharashtra was very serious about it, but the High Court came in between saying that we'll give 3 months extension before you completely ban it. But there are also other examples which I would like to cite in this example. There is one gentleman called Gopal Zaveri in Mumbai. I used to stay in Mumbai in Rahichas and there. They proactively, these people came out and there is a river called as Dahisa river next to the national park there. They just went on there one Sunday, collected plastic there, and out of the plastic they made plastic bench for the Sanjay Gandhi National Park. Now this movement, this kind of things don't require law. This is just an awareness created by the citizens there. I think these kind of things are something which can help us out.
No, awareness, what is the government's responsibility? Is it
It's
just
to promote,
awareness amongst public?
first to make law and then to enforce that. But when you enforce law, you should not hurt the people. But when you take the people along, I think that's better law than telling them.
I think that's the crux of what you're saying. How could you enforce a law that is going to hurt the people? Mr. Singh, is this going to hurt the people?
Yes, it's going to make a difference, but I would like to add here. First of all, please understand that the scrap imports have been banned in India for a long time. They're still banned today. No import comes in from outside. There is very little, and that is classified. Secondly, regarding the ban we have done without thinking, I would also like to note just a few things. Aluminium uses 25 times the energy, steel uses 5 times, glass uses 3 times. We are going to use the ground. Amount of CO2 will generate will be many, many more times than what the plastics is. So we are not saying you don't ban it, but you ban it with a plan, with a thought, with the arrangements. What is the industry going to do? What are the alternates available to the people? You cannot just stop. People will buy, people will use plastics, even bags or whatever, but you have to have a good solution, alternates, and then do it over a phased manner. Not
Mr.
suddenly just come
Goenka,
out and
Mr.
make
Singh is saying this is a not well thought out ban because the Prime Minister has also promised there's going to be economic growth. There's going to be more employment. There's how many?
So
4 million people supposedly employed by the plastic industry in India, which is also the fastest growing, one of the fastest growing industries.
See, I'm aware that 17% increment in the export happened last year, right? So it contributes to the foreign exchange. Also, there are 40 lakh people who are working directly in the plastic industry. Now, see the alternates been given. I'm happy that in Indian Railways, they have introduced cups made out of sugarcane waste. Now, they are diabetic. There are people who are selling in eateries. There are eatable stance cutleries where you can actually chew the cutlery after the use of that. So this kind of innovative ideas are coming up. And
good.
the
What's the
alternate
cost?
which has been provided by the Prime Minister is that he did not say from tomorrow. It was a thought over 2022. So we still have 4 years.
not
Then in
far.
today's time, the investment in R&D will help us out to find out alternates. And plastic ban for single use. So there are other things that you need. So for example, water tank which is needed, it will be of plastic. So we are not banning plastic in toto, right? But what we are talking about is rationalization of this wasteful, unthoughtful water. Now somebody talked about flowers which come in their house in the morning. Now they are kept in plastic. Can we have an alternate to it? So these kind of thoughts will start talking about only when the Prime Minister talks about serious implementation of the laws. So there can be alternates.
Yeah,
and if we
I
just segregate
Mr.
what
Panwar,
is the...
Mr. Come in here. Himachal Pradesh was the first state to have a complete ban on the use of plastic bags and packets. And it is a complete joke because I think in Chandigarh, they've showed Chandigarh every day has what 6 tons of plastic waste coming in just from Shimla.
Well,
So do these bans work on the ground?
yeah, it does. Well, it does. Definitely, it does. But before
hasn't worked in Shimla.
before working on the alternates, I think what Sir was also saying, the situation is really precarious because 83% of the water already contains plastic remains. I mean, at the micro level. So let us really rise now. That's number one. Number two, what plastic? It's not just the plastic waste that comes from Shimla. I think this is some misquoted data. There's a complete ban. You won't find a polythene ban there. And this journey started from 1995 in Shimla. Of course, there were hiccups. There were problems in that because there was a partial ban. So I very strongly support a complete ban.
Anyone been to Shimla recently?
A complete
I haven't.
ban. They will not find a polythene bag. Let me tell you that.
You're saying that
So the strategy of the government was sale, supply, and even store. So 3 S's were completely, and you see the enforcement was so strong, right from the police to the pollution control board and even my municipal corporation employees. They will just, and they've collected lakhs out of that. So now what you'll find is plastic coming in the form of milk packets, plastic in the form of some other forms which the city doesn't really, I mean, can't do beyond a limit. And I also remember this happened in 2013, the final ban, but the Supreme Court intervened, and then eventually we got 2014 mandate from the Supreme Court. But we were also going ahead with banning your water bottles, complete water bottles. And then, you know, this whole lobby that exists in the country, they didn't allow that to happen. So I think Shimla, you must understand, the waste that comes to Chandigarh is plastic, but not those polythene bans. And colored, you won't find colored polythene. For that matter, even the transparent polythene, you will not find that at all in Shimla. So enforcement is the key.
Bittu?
Sorry?
Bittu, would you like to respond here? Mr. Tikinder points out that, you know, a lot of the plastic is those milk packets. We do need plastic for everyday use, right? Products like milk, food, just more hygienic, that can last, it'll have a longer shelf life.
No, we do not. I mean, I don't support that. The point is because the milk it comes from Punjab, from Haryana. So the city, or for that matter the state, really can't do much beyond a scope. But then I think the strategy has to be very comprehensive, because I remember in my childhood days we used to get water, we used to get milk in those glass bottles, and even tinned. I mean, milk used to come tinned from Amritsar. So we can go back to that place. But I think there has to be a comprehensive strategy in a very holistic manner that I think stages are to be set.
Bittu Sehgal, respond to what you've heard so far.
Look, my response is actually quite straightforward. I agree nothing can be done in an instant like a guillotine, but this is not an instant. We've been talking about this for 2.5 decades. This is not as though it was last week discovered that there's too much plastic and it's toxic, etc. And you must understand something, that sometimes when people say, oh, this is not a problem, that's not a problem, you take water bottles. The moment you heat plastic, some of the plasticizers, they enter into the water that you're drinking. You think you're drinking it safe, you're not. It's actually a very dangerous situation. People like us actually sat down and wrote, say, the medical waste rules for India, something like 15, 18, 20 years ago. And we had recommended autoclaving as being the primary method, but the plastic industry lobbied and got it changed into disposable syringes. Now you go behind any major hospital and find out why are people collecting disposable syringes. They're washing them, they're cleaning them, they're repacking them, and they're coming back. And I can promise you the same thing is happening with... No, it's not just a lobby. It's not just the lobby. It's the decision makers who have, I mean, starting from the petroleum, from the refineries, they won't stop the tap.
So
And
but
they
if-
want the consumer to somehow magically solve the problem.
Yes. But if
Your
but-
drinking
yeah,
water
true.
bottles, just a minute, your drinking water bottles,
Yeah, true.
if you go into the toilets of some of the railway stations, you'll find the empty bottles being filled and recapped and sealed. Now, I mean, where's the hygiene? What are we
No, but
talking
a lot of
about?
these
We
bottles
just-
in plastic also, as you
I could just
transport them
ask
in
a
the
question
sun,
at a micro
there's-
level, because Shimla has been a shining example for the simple reason, I mean, how do you really categorize, or how do you really find complete ban on polythene? Because this is what we were able to do. This ban exists in Delhi, but you find all multicolored polythene bags in Delhi. You won't find that in Shimla. Is that not an eye opener that if there is enforcement, something can be done?
I'm not sure. I unfortunately can't verify this right
I
now,
have
but I do know that our
one more
reporter has
example, I
been
think, apart
in
from
Shimla
Shimla.
last week, and she has reported that there's been wide use of plastics, which also comes in from
outside.
a lot of the tourists. Yes, but
Yeah, for the
you are a
tourists.
tourist
But-
state.
but then-
Shimla is
Yeah,
the
that is
economy
something that
is
is
based
something
on tourism,
yeah,
right?
That,
So
that,
you
that is
can't-
something beyond
you
the
can't say it
capacity of the
comes-
city, but they are fine. The point is, they're fine. They're being dissuaded. They're being dissuaded not to bring that plastic into the city.
So that's saying your industry would be the first to celebrate if there was a complete ban on plastics, because you would tend to gain from that. Where do you stand on this?
Now, there's not a question of gaining from it. You see, today we produce about 2/3, more than 2/3 of raw jute and jute products in the world. So, if there is going to be a comprehensive ban on the use of plastics, especially the single-use plastic, in the form of the shopping bags, then I think we owe it to the world to provide a viable, green, environment-friendly alternative to plastic. And I think that's where the industry, I think, should gear itself to. We have been so far producing only gunny bags, which are used basically for food procurement exercise of the government. That's also needed. But we are not realizing the full importance or the full
But what's
value.
prevented you from doing this on your own? Why do you need
Sorry?
to wait for what has prevented you from doing this on your own
No,
as
no,
an
no.
industry?
It's-
Why do you
yeah,
need
see,
to wait for a ban to come
First,
into place
let me
before that?
clarify. I don't come from the jute industry. I happen to be the chairman of Jute Foundation, which
Correct.
we have just launched on the day of the World Environment Day. And we are saying that this is only one of the aspects that we are going to address, and which is providing an alternative to plastic in the form of bags. Now, today you need a lot of R&D to go into it. Right now, the kind of bags that we make are not, not everybody can take it to the supermarket. But let me share it with you. There are a number of companies who have been supplying jute bags as shopping bags to very important departmental stores in US, in Europe, and in Tokyo. They are going
What
from
about
Calcutta.
back home here in India, where we need it the
But
most?
that's the thing. You have to have awareness, one thing, and you have to have the legislation. It's not an either-or situation. If you
Correct.
ban plastic, you've got to have some alternative. So you have
So how would-
natural fiber, jute is one. You have paper.
And
you
how
have,
expensive are
bamboo
these?
products. Sorry.
How expensive are these? Because the advantage of plastic is that
See,
it's cheaper.
It's absolutely, but that you can use only once. Whereas a jute bag you can use again and again.